Hi. Well, for those of you that remember, my husband over Memorial Day weekend had a kidney stone, and we thought it passed the following Wednesday. But when he went in for his urology appointment last week and they did their scans and x rays or whatever they do, it turns out that it did not pass. And the thing is stuck in his ureter, and he's not having any pain, which is kind of amazing in itself, because I would think if you had a little boulder stuck in your ureter, it would hurt. But the issue is that he is not passing urine out of that kidney, and his kidney function is at 40. Now, I don't know, I can't remember what a normal kidney function is, but 40, they said 30 is when it starts causing damage. So they have to do something about it. So tomorrow I will be taking him for a procedure where they're going to place a stent up to his kidney to restore the flow of urine, and then the following week or so they're going to go in there and blast that stone apart so that he can pass it and then everything can be normal. Well, yesterday we had to drive about 40 minutes north of here for him to get a COVID test, because now, prior to any surgical procedures, that's a requirement. So we had to drive up there, they stuck the swab up his nose, and then we drive back home. And while we were driving, I start remembering his last surgical procedure, and I talked to him about it. And if you've ever had surgery, you know that you don't really remember much that happens, that day or the day after. Now, his past surgical procedure was for stents in his heart because he'd had a heart attack. And they only had placed one with the first procedure after his heart attack. But then when they brought him back into the room, he had, yesterday I remembered what it was called, but at the moment I can't remember what it was called. He had a reaction, and they ended up calling in the rapid response team and the crash cart, and we were kicked out of the room, and he was, flatlining and coming back and flatlining and coming back. They never did have to shock him, thank God. But my response to all of this going on is I just stood there. I had a very calm demeanor, and I was just basically non-reactive. And when we talked about it, that is how the nursing staff behaves. They're very calm, and they talk in a low voice. And it's not like the movies when they bring the crash cart in and everyone's yelling and running around. It's very calm, very professional, and that was my response. I had a different response later, but at the time that's what I did. But what my husband and I talked about yesterday after that was, when this happens and he has to go in for a procedure, I am faced with his mortality. Now, he's an ESFP, as you guys may know. And for him, it's all about living his best life, or living his life to the fullest, as he says. And there's not a lot of, it's very in the moment, of course, and there's not a lot of thought, I think, sometimes for what the future might hold, or maybe even for what your actions might have consequences later. That's kind of what it seems like to me. And, I wish he was sitting next to me to defend himself, but he's not. I've been trying to talk him into sitting in my live stream, so we're working on that for tonight. We'll see if he can sit in. But a lot of times I feel like I need to bring reality to him. And to him, it's always like an overblown reality, maybe. like the Chicken Little sky is falling type stuff, and I just told him, because what I was thinking over and over yesterday was, and this is something I've mentioned to more than one person, I can do this without him. I realize that I can do all the things that I do without him, but I don't want to. I do not want to finish raising our teenagers by myself without their dad. I do not want to live the rest of my life without him. Can I? Sure. Yeah. I'm strong. I can do lots of things on my own. I would make it, I can do it, but I don't desire to do it. I don't want to live the rest of this life without my husband. And that sounds very morbid and very whatever, but I know the things that, my intuition and the voice of the Holy Spirit tells me. I've been warned about these types of things about him. But I don't want to face that reality. I would rather just him stick around. So he needs to make some changes, and he has been making changes. When an event comes up, he's really good at like getting in there and making changes, but the changes need to stick so that he can live. I know that the last time we went in to his cardiologist, that I went along with him, his cardiologist told him, you need to go home, look at your wife and look at your children and decide you want to live. Because if you end up back here, there's not going to be a lot we can do for you. And for me, that would be enough to scare me onto the right path, But I don't know what it is about him, and he just has this feeling of immortality, that he's bulletproof, and maybe he still thinks he's 20 years old. He's almost 50. He's not 20. But he needs your prayers. He needs your prayers to get through his procedure tomorrow, to be safe, to not have any complications, that his heart would behave itself under anesthesia, and that this one procedure, which is step 1, will do the trick, and they don't have to do, steps 2 and step 3 and step 4. They've got lots of options that they can carry through to try to get this stinking stone broken up. And, as I'm talking about this, I realize I'm looping. That's something my husband says to me now when I have conversations with him, or when we talk about something and then I bring it up again 3 hours later. He says, Joy, you're looping. Go watch a few videos, or go walk outside, or do whatever you need to do to get yourself some peace, because you're looping and you need to let it go. But anyway, my husband needs your prayers, and I'm kind of a mess. All I can think about lately, the last few days, is my children not having a father, and that breaks my heart. I mean, this is not a life-threatening procedure, but I am just seeing his mortality once again straight in my face with this. And I lived without a dad. I had a stepdad, and he was fabulous. He was. But I did also have a father, and I didn't see him very often. And then as an adult, I didn't have a dad. And then now he's gone, and I have no hope of him ever coming back, because, he passed away. So I do not want that for my children. And my husband doesn't want that for my children, or for our children, because, he lived without a dad his entire life. And he knows his dad now, but growing up and as a young adult man, he didn't have a dad. So he knows that pain and that separation of what it's like to grow up without a father, and what it's like to be a young adult and an adult without a dad. And my kids are very close to their dad, and they need him. and so do I. So maybe, I said all of these things to him yesterday, and he might be a little embarrassed about this video. I don't know if he'll watch it or not, but it's tough to be faced with your one flesh's mortality. So I appreciate your prayers, guys. I'm sorry this video is not what I had planned, but it's what I needed to talk about today, and I might have an extra one tomorrow because I have to sit in a parking lot while my husband has a surgical procedure because of this pestilence that's over our land. I cannot go in with him. So I appreciate you. I will see you next time. Thank you so much.